record. All right, so Thursday night, 31st of March, end of March, we're heading into April now, or tomorrow. What we're going to be going through today will be some of the news that happened before. Actually, no news happened before, so nothing much to review. What we'll be looking at, I'll do a very quick prep for you guys, is the Canadian news happening at 8:30. So I'll jump into that almost straight away, get some trade ideas going there. And then once it happens, or while that's happening, we can look into other trade ideas and also give you a quick analysis and possible trade ideas into the non-farm payroll for tomorrow night, right? So again, this is recorded. So if you are here live with us, fantastic. If you are watching this on YouTube, then this will be up on YouTube for non-club members 1 week later. For club members, I'll upload it straight away. Then now, let's look into this. Any information shared in this video is not intended to be a trade recommendation. It is solely the opinion and views of myself, the speaker. So please remember to do your own analysis prior to entering any trades, especially tonight, where we'll be looking at some possible trade ideas. With that, now, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask the question. We'll jump, in case I don't see the chat, or you can leave it in the chat as well. Looking at Forex Factory here for today, we've had a whole bunch of news. We have a quite good GDP number quarter on quarter for the UK. Was a 1.0%. It came out at a 1.3. That's why we saw a bit of a spike up in the pound dollar, but that retraced and seems to be retracing a little bit now. Following on from that, all these euro news didn't have too much of an impact on the euro dollar. We actually saw the euro dollar dropping down, but I'll tell you why shortly. At 8:30, we do have the Cad Gdp month-on-month number was 0%, expected at 0.2. Looking like a bit of an improvement, not a big change expected there. So something to pay attention to there. Previously, we have seen the GDP for the Cad actually go, on the 1st of March, went from a 0.6 to 0. In Feb, it actually went from a 0.8 to 0.6. And then in December, from a 0.2 to a 0.8. So it hasn't really gone in any big direction at this point, but the GDP number looking like a slight improvement there. And then we have the non-farm payrolls for tomorrow, which I'll jump into that shortly. What happened through the week was that we've seen on we've seen on Monday, Governor Bailey speaking, nothing much happened there. Tuesday, we went through that already. Wednesday, ADP non-farm for the US was 486, slightly revised there from 475. So a slight revision, and then it actually came out as expected. This gives us a little bit of a guess, right? I wouldn't say it's an insight, but a bit of a guess onto what the non-farm payroll might be for Friday, right? So it looks like it's going to drop slightly, not a big change. The overall expectation is that ADP, because it's a private number, gives us a hint onto the non-farm payrolls, but what actually is the case is we haven't seen too much of a correlation between the ADP and the non-farm payroll on Friday. So just be a bit careful with that, but it gives us a slight hint there, right? And then today we do have that GDP number for Cad. So with that, what to expect here, slight strengthening, slight improvement in the GDP number, which means that looking at the US Cad first, looking at the US Cad, right? It is now sitting at this 1.2520 level, sitting at this 1.2520 level. If we do see a strengthening in the Cad going to the H1 time frame, what you could be looking for is that move down towards this 1.25 level. Very small move there. This is about a, well, it's starting to move already, right? It's a 1.2516 going towards 1.25 flat. That's only a 16 pip move. I wouldn't look to trade that at this point, especially given that it's 15 minutes to the news. What I would say is that you could be looking for a possible trade if we do see the GDP number get released at 0.2, maybe even a 0.4, a slight bit better than expected there. You could be looking for a selling opportunity below 1.25. I would say be a little bit safer, 1.2493, right? You could, all right? So again, disclaimer applies, but you want to be looking at either entering the trade when the news gets released and then, see the positive number, jump into the trade as it breaks that 1.25 level, or you could have a sell order there at about 1.2493. Stop loss, I would say maybe about 15 pips. Take profit would be, I wouldn't go all the way down. That's very unlikely they will go all the way down there. So I think take profit might be about a 30 pip, and then be ready to close out at anywhere in between there, especially if we see it consolidate slightly at a 1.2481 level. Okay, so at this 1.2481 level would be about 15. So this is a 1:1 risk reward ratio towards the downside, or that 30 pip 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the downside for the US CAD. So that's quite straightforward in terms of the GDP number. Looking for a positive number on the GDP for the US CAD, looking for the CAD to strengthen, looking for it to break that 1.25 level before jumping into a trade at about 1.2493 for 1:1 or 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the downside. So quite straightforward there on the US CAD. Remind me again as we come closer towards the 8:30 time, and then we'll look into the news and this chart again. Just doing a quick look into the dollar. So we saw the euro dollar. We're just talking about the euro dollar. We saw it drop quite significantly. The euro dollar, the euro yen, and also the euro pound actually dropped quite significantly. Just this morning, I was talking about it consolidating at this 97.87 level and possibly going up to test this 98.24 or 98.25 level. It's done that exactly. At this point now, I think that we might see it come up. I don't think there'll be any real directions unless it breaks out of this 98.46 level. Okay, so again, a quick revision of this is that it's likely to, I think that it's likely to bounce. Wait, let me move this away. It's likely to bounce at this level, this 98.26 level, break up a little bit or bounce around similar to what happened here, bounce around at this level, and only if it does break above 98.45, then I would say we're going to see significant dollar strength come into play, right? So only if it breaks above this point, then we'll see significant dollar strength towards that 98.87 level, and then after that higher again. Why 98.87 is because of that level there, that test of that level there, that consolidation around this area, and then also at that point there, how it tested and bounced off, tested, retraced straight away, and then that few times over this last couple of candles there. So no real directions expected on the dollar now. I would say that you have to be a bit careful in terms of the dollar trading towards a dollar strength or trading towards a dollar weakness. I think it's approaching that level where it's going to be consolidating, but look for it to break above before having a bit of a more straight or more confidence towards the dollar strength. So with that, right? Any questions? I don't see the chat blinking, so if no questions yet, just doing a quick review of what we did for the pound yen. So a signal was sent out this afternoon for the pound yen. So looking at an H1 time frame. right? The signal was sent out, just doing a quick check, at 159.95. So 159.95, and that was sent out at 6 hours ago. Well, 6 hours ago, so about 2 o'clock. So at about that point there, 159.95 was there, right? So we were looking to sell that down from that candle moving lower, right? From that candle moving lower. As I was just telling you about it during the session during the morning, we're looking to sell the pound yen lower. So that moved down, and we actually saw my trade closed out at 30 pips. I don't know why the take profit was there, but closed out at 30 pips. So it actually moved down. Wait, I used the wrong one. So it actually moved down 195, about 49 pips. It actually went down about 50 pips before bouncing back up to that 35 pips. And then after that, now bouncing back down and bouncing back up again. So again, this is a quick reminder. You know, this went to take profit 2 before bouncing back up. And then after that, would have hit stop loss if you didn't close out your trade, bouncing back down to about take profit level 1 before bouncing back up again. So this is again a reminder, you know, if you follow the trade signals, one, it's there to give you a bit of an idea of the possible market movements. So we actually wanted to catch that move towards the downside. 2, the take profit levels are there to give you an indication of where to consider closing out a trade. So why we had that level there at, the level there at 159.55, 159.55, that was TP2 there, right? It's because it consolidated at this level. It bounced off at this level, it bounced off at this level 2 times over the last couple of days or yesterday. So it came down to this same level and bounced back up again. It came down to this level and it bounced back up again. So this is the reason how you would use those signals, you know, take profit level 1, look at it, decide whether you want to close out the trade, might not be ready. Take profit level 2, look at whether you can close out the trade. It's hit that point, it looks like it's bouncing back up, then you want to close out that trade. So if you are holding on to that trade, you would be slightly positive, right? At this point, 2 pips in the green, I would say close out the trade. Looks like it might be bouncing back up towards the upside for the pound yen, possibly to test that 160.80 level again, right? So just be careful there with the pound yen. So I've got 7 minutes to the news release. Let's look at some trade ideas. Any questions there so far? All good? All good?
Just on the exit of that that trade, Jin, you're obviously looking at the shorter term timeframes and indicators to time your exit.
No, so you know, it's mostly the signals are sent out mostly on the not mostly, on the H1 timeframe. So I look at the H1 timeframe there. The reason why the exit would have been was because of this level bouncing off at this point. So you can also use indicators to give you an idea of whether to get off a trade. But you know, going through the steps, first it was a trend, then it was the support and resistance, then the indicators. So applying that in the reverse, I would look at the trend, whether it's changing. In this case, now it looks like it's changing back up. So I would look to get out of a trade, or if it's hit a support or resistance level, then I'll look to get out of a trade. Or if the indicators are changing, then I'll look to get out of a trade. So the same reasons why I get into a trade would be the same sequence of reasons why I would look to get out of a trade. Make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Awesome. Cool. All right, cool. You guys are just having a chat in the chat. That's fantastic. Take that one away. So now looking at the Aussie dollar. Looking at the Aussie dollar right now, bear in mind what we have just looked at just then was the first thing we looked at was the dollar index, where we were looking at dollar strength possibly being applied, coming back into that consolidation. So I'm looking for that in that mindset of that slight bias there. So with the Aussie dollar now, I'll move this in a little bit just so that it looks easier. It's just seems to have bounced off this 7.7483 level. If you're looking for that dollar strength to come back into play, then looking for that to turn down, I wouldn't be too keen. I'm just not very happy with the Aussie dollar recently, just with the way it's been a bit against how the dollar index has been going. So we've seen dollar, let me just bring that up. We've seen the dollar strength, and it always seems to be going against the dollar index at this point. Oh, wrong one. Right, so okay, now we actually see the dollar turning down here. So because that dollar index is turning down a little bit, you see this pushing up, but it hasn't pushed up as much as that dollar has turned down in this case. So I'll be a bit more careful with the Aussie dollar. What I would say is you can look to buy as a revision of the previous trade idea here. I think that the way it's reacting to this 7483 level, this will be a trending scenario. So I'll zoom this down a little bit. You can see that, move this away. You can see that the Aussie dollar has actually gone up, tested that 7540 level, came back down, hit that 7485 level, bounced back up, came back down. Now I'm looking for it to see if you have to trade the Aussie, it's whether this could push back up, trading within that range. We haven't had any big news from the Aussie dollar. We haven't had any big news coming in either the Aussie or the US dollar. So this could be in a trending scenario where you could be looking to buy above 7495. I'll be a bit more conservative there. Above 7495, the take profit, I wouldn't go all the way. I would say at that point will be a 35 pip take profit, stop loss about 20 pips there, almost a 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the upside. But at this point, this could be a trade, but I'm possibly not going to be very happy with jumping into a trade like that. I think other pairs would have a lot more opportunities rather than the Aussie dollar at this point. So with that, do a quick one on the Kiwi before we look at the CAD. Kiwi dollar, I was doing this as a analysis that we shared on Ecofin just then. So I'll take these lines away. All right, so Kiwi dollar moving similar to the Aussie dollar, bouncing off, currently now bouncing off this 69.31 level again. I would say that if you're looking, instead of the Aussie dollar, I would prefer the Kiwi dollar, just the way it's been reacting, right? I'll show you, I'll zoom it out a little bit. You can see that it's gone up, tried lower, and then now it's broken up. And now it looks like it's going to bounce up from this point again. Again, no big news coming from the Kiwi or the US at this point. Could you be looking to buy? I would say that similar to the Aussie dollar, only if there's really no other trades and you really wanted to force out a trade, I would say above that 6946, above 6946 because of this point here. If it breaks above, then we're going to see that we could see that move higher. So you could be looking at about a 30 pip to a 40 pip take profit. Stop loss quite tight at about 20 pips there, just below this line. You're looking at a 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the upside for the Kiwi dollar. So with that said about that, let's jump into the news first. I know I'm jumping all around. I hope you can keep up with it. If you're feeling a bit lost, let me know. So Cad GDP came out at 0.2% as expected from a previous of 0. What we've seen in the Cad, US Cad is that move towards that 1.25 level. At this point, I'll show it to you on the M15 time frame, right? So this is M15 at this point. It's dropped. It looks like it's going to continue lower. I wouldn't do anything at this point. I would still wait, let it come lower, let it break below this 1.25, stick to the plan, and only if it breaks below 1.2493, then we'll be looking for that selling opportunity. The question here might be, can we sell it down from here to here? I would say that, that's only a 10 pip move, a little bit too tight for a trade of my liking. I would say let it break below before jumping into that trade, that possible trade. If anyone can keep an eye on the US CAD for me at one point, if it comes close to 1.2493, give me a shout out, let me know, and I will jump back to the US CAD. All right, so that's the Kiwi dollar possible bounce. Again, same like the Aussie dollar. It could be a trade idea, it could be a possible trade, but I wouldn't be extremely keen on it at this point. Alternatively, what you could be looking at is the euro dollar, right? Euro dollar, the last time we spoke about it on Tuesday night, we said, it shot up, take profit. I think I did a recap. The next morning it said that, if you haven't already, you could try for the second trade. It did that. And right now, again, quite straightforward. If you miss that first trade, miss that second trade, I think it can happen again. Same thing. I'll move this a little bit. If you've missed those two trades, you could be looking for a buy at now or about 1 point. I wouldn't want to go too high. I would say at about 1.1118 or 1.1120, right? Your take profit would be about 56 pips, 50 pips. Normally, I would say put your stop loss about there. That's about 50, a little bit too wide. I would say you could even have a stop loss at about that point below the recent low. So about 27 to 30 pips towards the downside, you would have a 1:2 risk-reward ratio for the euro dollar back up. This, I would be a little bit more comfortable with, just the way the euro dollar has been going. That recent move towards the upside, this last 1, 2, 3, 4 hours dropping was coincident with what happened here for the dollar index 1, 2, 3, 4 hours of strengthening. That's why we saw the euro dollar drop. So now looking at this, that 98.26 holding as a possible resistance now, I think that we're not likely to see this break higher. I think it will test lower again. So you could see that as a buying opportunity back up following that trend. So now, with the Aussie, with the Kiwi and the Euro, I would actually rank the Euro dollar a little bit higher than the Aussie and the Kiwi. I'll rank Euro first, Kiwi second, and then the Aussie third, just because of the range it has been moving in. Then with the Euro dollar, now looking at the pound dollar, remember these are all on the H1 time frame, so something that you really want to pay attention to. Pound dollar coming towards that 1.3135 level, it's bounced, right? And this support level of 1.31 held quite strong. It tested once, twice, and now it's bouncing back up. I would say that it could go up, or likely that it will go up because of how the euro dollar has been moving, but there's a lot of tails, right? So that trial, that tail there turning back down, that tail there turning back down, and then that move, but that few tails there. I would say that any strong move up towards the upside would only be if the pound dollar closes above 1.3145. If it has to close above 1.3145, so you'll be looking to buy at about 1.31, let's say 1.3150, right? In this case, your stop loss would be about 30 pips. I wouldn't want you to go too far at 45. I would say about a 30 pip stop loss. Take profit wouldn't be all the way towards that 1.32 level. I would say take profit would be about the recent high point, so about 30 pips as well. A 1:1 risk reward ratio towards the upside. Again, a bit too much to wait and a bit too many tails happening in between now to the entry point. I would say I'll rank this lower, like similar to the Aussie level. I don't think this would be a good trade. I think the euro dollar would be a better trade than the pound dollar at this point, right? So dollar index still moving the way it is. US CAD has bounced off this 1.25 level, so no trade for the US CAD at this point. I think that I would say that given the news event, given the news event, it'll be a short term. It was expected to be a short term move. It wasn't a big news, despite GDP, but it's a month-on-month number. So given that it's bounced off this 1.25 level, I would not consider this trade anymore, right? It's 6-7 minutes past the news, it's come down, it's bounced off this level. I would say that I wouldn't look to sell it down further. I wouldn't think that it's going to break lower and to sell down. I'll say that it might look like it's going to bounce back up and push up, but that's only a 20 something pip move towards the upside. I would still rank the euro dollar higher than this US CAD trade. So not too keen on it now, especially given those two test and reject tails that is happening right now. So let's give it another couple of minutes and see what happens on the US CAD, especially on the M15 time frame. If it closes this way, closes up, then we're possibly going to see further upside on the US CAD, right? So dollar index still bouncing at this level, testing a little bit. What's next? USD JPY, US yen, right? US yen was very nice to me this afternoon. I jumped into a trade. Let me just have a check. US yen at 121.82. So I sold yen at 121.82. So at about that point there. Same with the pound yen. And then it hit my take profit at 121.52, which is about there, right? So about there, 121.52, about there. So within the hour, right? Within half an hour, it's dropped and hit my take profit. I was looking to see if it was going to go any further. It was going to break below this point, possibly to sell further, but then it's bounced back up. So I wouldn't be looking for any trade. I didn't look for any trade during the day. At this point right now, the way the US yen is moving, I would say it needs to break below this 121.60 level. It needs to close below, significantly below, before we could see it come and test that 121 level. Okay, so what you could be looking out for here on the US yen is selling opportunity below 121.60. I would be a bit safer and say 121.55, right? 121.55. Again, stop loss, I would keep it a little bit tighter, about 30 pips, because I wouldn't want to go 80 pips there. I'll keep it about 30. This could be a short term, a very short term trade there. and then take profit at this 121 level. You're looking at a 30 pip stop, 50 pip take profit, a 1:1.65 risk reward ratio towards the downside for the US yen. So I'll move this across a little bit, drag this over just so that you can look at what's likely to happen, right? Don't anticipate that it's going to break this 121 level. I think it's a very strong level. The last time we saw it test and bounce back up, test and bounce back up. Looks like if it does break below, it's going to test and bounce back up again. All right, and then Euro Yen. Euro Yen, similar to what the Euro Dollar has been doing, it's calmed down. Right now, actually, the Euro Yen similar, opposite of what the Yen is doing. I think that, similar to the Euro, I think that we might see it bounce up from this point. Same as what happened here on the 28th of March. Broke above this point. On the 30th of March, bounced off from this point. We could look at a break towards the upside here for the Euro Yen, right? Just jump onto that. So just to give you a line there, what you could be looking at is about 134.99, so 135 level. If it does bounce up, look at the H1 time frame, in about 20 minutes, if it closes at about 135.29, you could be looking at a 110. I don't think you'll move 110 pips tonight, but you could be looking at 110 take profit, a 50 pip stop loss, a 1:2.23, but you will look to close out anywhere at about 50 pips. So a 1:1 would be a great trade towards the upside for the Euro Yen. Okay, but the way the Euro Yen is going to move is going to be highly dependent on how the Euro Dollar moves towards the upside. Then lucky last, Pound Yen. Oh, actually we talked about Pound Yen already. So we spoke about Pound Yen. I sold it down at this point, looking. The reason why I'm a little bit about any trade ideas on the cross pairs is because of how the dollar on the dollar index on H1 is doing. Hasn't really found any direction, so it's really sitting right across, and I actually anticipate that I thought it would sit across in this range, but it's possibly going to sit just below this 98.27 level all the way until the non-farm payrolls tomorrow night. I think we're not going to see much of a direction coming from the dollar index until tomorrow night's non-farm payroll at 8:30, right? We might see some fluctuations here during the day, but the main thing will be non-farm payrolls. Tomorrow night was 678K, expected 492K. At this point, I think that, I would say that we might see a 480 or 460 to a 480 number, but despite that, we're still going to see that dollar strength come into play because unemployment rate is likely to go to that 3.7. I think that we might even see a 3.6 for the unemployment rate from the US, and average hourly earnings going from a 0 to a 0.4. So looking like an improvement there. That drop last month was a bit of a surprise, right? So it went from a 0.6, expected 0.5, it came out at 0. So it's a bit of a surprise there. So I think that we might see that average hourly earnings come back at 0.4, which also indicates that inflation, right? Increase in average hourly earnings, which shows an inflation is gaining, that historic high in inflation numbers the US is currently experiencing. we're going to see that. So with high inflation, it's going to force the FOMC into further actions in terms of their monetary policy. We're possibly going to see more talk about FOMC increasing rates by 50 basis points instead of the 25, which they did. The last meeting was expected to be 50, but because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, it only went up by 25. The talk is, and members from the FOMC have been coming out commenting and trying to talk it up, saying that if they have to, they will 50 basis points in May and the subsequent ones as well, as many times as they need to. We might see that being reinforced with this non-farm payroll number to be released tomorrow at 8:30. So again, back to the way the dollar index is moving, I anticipate that we're going to see it sit across and possibly break towards the upside tomorrow night, right? So that actually makes it a bit more interesting for all the pairs across the board if we do see a dollar strength come back into play. For example, US CAD, the M15 time frame, M15 candle hasn't given us any real directions. Now it looks like it's bouncing further up, so I wouldn't be looking to jump into any trade towards the upside yet. Any questions at this point? Okay, wait. Do we assume your signals are set up on H1? Yes, signals are on H1 time frame. Also, how do you play overnight trades where you're not monitoring set automated profit at take profit 1? Yeah. So in terms of the signals, what I would say is that if you are following the signals, if you're following the signals, and I would say it quite blindly, the signal comes out, you jump into it, then I would say you put your take profit at take profit 1, or you could also have it in between take profit 1 and 2. So maybe you could do a 30 pip stop loss, a 30 pip take profit, or 1:1 risk reward ratio, because usually the TP1 is about 20 pips, TP2 is 40, and TP3 is 60. So you could do a 1:1 risk reward ratio on the signals. And overnight trades, it really depends on the way that you want to trade. I would say that most of the signals, or pretty much all the signals on the H1 time frame, are sent out with the intention to be realized quite quickly. So if you are not comfortable with an overnight trade, or if you prefer not to hold an overnight trade, then you can look to close out your trade before you go to bed, at a small profit or at take profit level 1. You could look to close out those trades there as well. But usually on the H1 time frame, I would say that trades, signals sent out could be realized quite quickly. Does that make sense? Awesome. All righty. So did I miss out any other pairs? Oh wait, euro pound. Euro pound. Euro pound has totally reversed, so I'll take that away. I can't remember why we said it was. Okay, so we were saying that it was going to go up on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we were saying that if the euro dollar continues moving higher, we could see it move up, but that drop was because of the euro dollar coming down. So let's move that away. Euro pound at this point, right? So every time you look at euro pound, you have to do that quick overall look. Again, a reminder of the way the euro dollar is moving. Euro dollar, well, failed to, no, not in 15. Euro dollar is not doesn't look like it's moving much higher. It's really sitting right at that point. So euro dollar, no real directions there. And then the pound dollar again, sitting right across at this point. So that's why we're seeing the euro pound sitting right across, moving down slightly because that euro dollar is moving down slightly as well. I think that if it does close in 10 minutes, if the euro pound does close below that 8449 level, if it closes below 8449, we can look to sell down. This is another scenario where both a buying and or a selling, or a selling opportunity. Euro pound below 8449, you can look to sell down. Stop loss about 24, 25 pips, take profit at about 40 pips, right? A 1:1.6 risk reward ratio. And if it does sit there and turn back up and it does break above, then you can look for a buying opportunity above 84.8474, take profit about 36 pips, stop loss below that point, maybe about 15 pip. So you're looking at a 1:2 risk reward ratio towards the upside for the euro pound. So I like how, in particular, when prices are at a support or a resistance level, it gives us the opportunity for both an upside or a downside potential. So why an upside or downside here is because, if it does break lower, then it'll be a counter trend. It'll be a break below this support, a counter trend lower. If it does break up, then we can look at it as a following trend. Is breaking above the resistance, we can look for a trend following trade up towards that recent high point of 85 or almost 85 flat. So this gives us a buying or selling opportunity for the euro pound. All right. Any other questions at this point? Gold this morning, I was saying that if it does go down, you can look to sell down, but it's bounced back up. At this point, I would say that for gold on the H1 time frame, even if it does go up, it's going to get halted around that 1937 level, or at the most 1940 level. So not a great upside potential. I would still be looking for some downside trade, but at this point, no real directions for gold as well, right? So what you should gather here is that as we lead up to the non-farm payrolls number on Friday, with not a lot of news, right? Just doing a quick recap of what's happened this week is that since Monday, we haven't had much news. We have had Governor Bailey speaking on an online event, right? Didn't move prices too much on Monday night. Tuesday, some US jobs openings number, again, didn't move too much. Wednesday, we had a non-farm ADP non-farm number, not much news, all the way to the Cad tonight GDP number, and then the US non-farm payrolls number tomorrow. So what you should gather here is that, not a lot of news. Follow the trend scenario. The dollar, the way it's sitting at this close to this 98.26 level, I think that we will see this fluctuate. I would say that we went through quite a few possible trade ideas, but I wouldn't think that you want to force any trade for tonight. We might see it move, but I don't see big moves for the across the board at this time. Right, everything is still sitting at that levels. No real directions yet. Right, so euro dollar sitting there as well. Might test lower, but I don't think there'll be a great selling opportunity either. Pound dollar still sitting in that range. Would like to see it drop a bit lower before, bouncing back up again. US yen, again, would like to see it drop lower towards that 1.21 level, but it looks like everything is just holding a little bit steady. Nothing much is happening now. Euro yen, again, testing that level. I think this kind of test, as it tests this support level, might set up for the trade, but I'll just be, it requires a lot more patience. It might be into the 10 p.m. GMT plus 8 timing before we see some moves. I think market seems to be consolidating a little bit, especially given the way the dollar is going to consolidate there. All right. Unfortunately, not very exciting, not a lot of trades to be looked at or to be jumped into at this point. Any other question? If I see any trade setups for the non-farm payrolls into tomorrow, then I'll do a quick update into the club as well for you guys. Just to show you last one, the US CAD has totally bounced back up off that test after testing that 1.25 level, now testing higher again. Just be very careful if you're looking to buy it up. Looking at the US CAD on the H1 time frame, it's just that big move. We spoke about it so many times. US CAD doesn't like that 1.25 level. It's too low, but it hasn't have any real reasons to push much higher. So it's just been in that 1.25 to 1.2570 level, trading in that range. So just be very careful with the US CAD. We've tried to do a counter trend on the US CAD at this point. Right. Any questions? Any trades that you want to have a look at, or trade reviews that you want to have a look at? If you haven't, then we will call an end to the session, and then I'll do if I see any trade ideas or trade setups leading up to the non-farm payrolls, I'll do a quick video and upload it onto the club platform for you guys as well. All right. So thank you all. Don't try and trade too much tonight. I don't think you'll move too significantly, but trade safe, trade well, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for the US CAD and then non-farm payrolls, hopefully. Take care now. Bye-bye.